Good evening, everybody. My name is E.R. Anderson. I'm the executive director of Charis Circle. Charis Circle is a nonprofit programming arm of Charis Books, and Charis Books is the South's oldest independent feminist bookstore. We're very honored to be here tonight celebrating Asylum, a memoir and manifesto. This event is co-hosted by the Counter Narrative Project and the Atlanta Pride Committee. The Counter Narrative Project seeks to shift narratives about Black, gay, and queer men to change policy and improve lives. The Counter Narrative Project stands in the tradition of Marlon Riggs, Essex Hemphill, Joseph Beam, James Baldwin, and Bayard Rustin. And we're joined by the director of the Counter Narrative Project, Charles Stevens. Charles is our interviewer tonight. He's an Atlanta-based writer and the founder of the Counter Narrative Project. He is the co-editor of the anthology Black Gay Genius, Answering Joseph Beam's Call, and co-editor of the forthcoming collection, Race, Justice, and HIV, Visions for a Society Without Bars. He has been a participant in the Lambda Literary Writers Retreat for Emerging LGBTQ Voices and the 10 House Winter Workshop. His writings have appeared in the anthologies For Color Boys Who Have Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Is Still Not Enough, Coming of Age, Coming Out, and Coming Home, and If We Have to Take Tomorrow. He has also contributed to Atlanta Magazine, Lambda Literary Review, Advocate, Creative Loafing, Georgia Voice, and the AJC. In 2017, he was a recipient of the Christopher Hewitt Award for Drama. He is a graduate of Georgia State University. And I was very excited to ask Charles to be here tonight to celebrate the work of Edafe Okporo, who was born in Warri, Nigeria. He migrated to the United States in 2016 as an asylum seeker and is now a refugee of the United States. Edafe is a global gay rights activist, the founder of Refuge America, Inc., and one of the country's most visible voices on the issue of displacement, leading an organization with a vision to strengthen as a place of welcome for LGBTQ displaced people. A graduate of Enugu State University and the School of Business at NYU, he currently lives in New York City. He is among the inaugural winners of the David Prize, which honors individuals with bold visions for creating a better and brighter New York City. He is also a Logo 30 honoree. So welcome to you both, and welcome to everybody watching at home or watching wherever you're watching around the world. We're very honored to have you with us tonight. You may, of course, shout out where you're watching from in the chat if you like. You can also ask a question at any time by clicking this Ask a Question tab. If you're on your phone and it's easier to just put it in the chat, that's fine. I'll move it over. And Charles will incorporate the questions from the community towards the end. But I am going to get out of here and let y'all two get into this great conversation. Thank you both so much for being here to celebrate Asylum.
Well, I should begin by saying that I'm really honored to be in this conversation with you. And as I read your memoir, I was so inspired. I was also amazed at just some of the parallels that I feel like we shared. So it just seems like this conversation just makes so much sense. And I'm just really thankful to be able to have this conversation with you. And I'm a little intimidated, and I don't get intimidated easily. So just all the love.
You know, I respect you a lot. I said this before we started the call. Like, I appreciate the work you guys do. It means a lot to me and the community I seek to serve. So I'm really super pumped tonight.
Well, why don't we just jump in? I think the first question that I have, and I would just love for you to share with the audience, is could you just share with us how did this memoir project come about? Like, what was the moment when you decided that you wanted to tell your story in this way?
I think it started when I was younger, but I didn't know I was going to be a writer. In college, I was studying food science and technology, a minor in chemical engineering. I did a master's in nutrition. I never wanted to have anything to do with the arts. But I was posted for youth service. It's like Peace Corps. And I discovered that people were telling a narrative of me that wasn't true. And I wanted to change that narrative. And that was the first time I discovered that there's a power in storytelling. And subsequently, when I came to America, I was just concerned about creating safe haven for LGBTQ displaced people. As a result of that work, I started writing opinion pieces. And as at George Floyd murder in 2020, I discovered a trend in the opinion pieces that I've written. And they have four things in common: being gay, being black, being a displaced person, and being religious. And the only way I could bring those opinions together was a book. And that was the journey of writing this book.
Well, it's interesting you talk about religion as part of your narrative, as part of your experience. And it was also, I think, something that is one of the threads throughout your memoir, Asylum. Could you talk a bit about just your early experiences with religion? I know in the memoir you talk about considering becoming a minister as a way to almost sort of like shield yourself from your gay identity. Could you just talk a bit about the role that religion played in your formative years and just your some of your experiences?
You know, in the memoir, I wrote that when I was younger, about 6 or 7 years old, my grandmother, she would take me to church on a Sunday morning. She would put me on tie, tuck in my shirt properly, and bring me to the church and show her friends. She was like, meet my grandson, Edafe. He's going to be a pastor. And they'll be like, hey, Edafe Okporo, pastor, stuff like that. I'll clean the church. It was like a true line in my life. When I became more matured, I discovered that religion does not only provide community, but can provide a cover for me. In my formative years, the Bible was really influential in how I grew up. And up to today, I still find some true line in the narratives the Bible taught. Like David, who wasn't supposed to be a king, over Jonathan became a king. Ruth, Samuel, there's just stories that are like human and show resilience, courage, faith. But I wanted to be a pastor because it would be a cover for me as a gay person. Nobody would ask me, when are you getting married? If they see me with another man, they'll be like, it's okay. I'm not supposed to be with women. I'm supposed to be in prayer, talking with the choir. This is like a cover for many gay people. So I became a pastor to fend off those complaints. But when I was a pastor, I started discovering that I was telling a lie, because I would go to church and I would hear messages like, gay people are going to hell. They're going to burn in the bottomest part of the pit. So I felt like, why am I lying to myself? And that was when I started repealing my identity as a religious person to try and figure out who I really was outside of religion. There was no way I could have survived as a young Nigerian from the South without being a religious person, because it was the church that we find community. And if you are outside the church, you don't have any friends. So it was just like my life. I go to church like 5 days a week, Bible study, Sunday school, midweek prayer, fasting on Friday. It was just like on and on and on. It was my amusement park. It was everything for me.
It was everything for you, including a place where you were able to have physical intimacy. I know in your memoir you talk about some of the sexual experiences that you were able to have as part of this religious community. One of the people you introduced us to in your memoir is a priest who was almost kind of like a cautionary tale for you. You saw this 50 something year old black gay man in the closet who was also a faith leader. He was a priest, and he invited you over to spend the weekend with him. Could you tell us about that experience with that person and how it kind of shifted your worldview, I think?
Yeah, so when I was younger, it was more difficult for me to um, meet people my age, because people my age were not sure if they are gay or not. They were not sure if this identity they were grappling with their identity. So the only kind of people that I had interaction with were older than me. So I went on a gay dating app called Manjam, and I met this older guy who was DL. That was the first time I discovered what is like download. And he invited me to come to another state. I got there, we drove in a car into this big building, and I discovered that it was a church. We went up to the vestry area, that was where he was staying, and he told me, I told them that my fellow priest, younger brother, was going to school and is stopping by for me to give him some stuff. I was so gross. I didn't know what to do. I didn't allow him to touch me. I was feeling like repelled by everything I was seeing. The next morning, when I came down from the vestry, he was preaching in the church and was saying things about gay people. That was the moment I saw that this was the life I was going to live if I remained as a pastor to protect myself from persecution as a gay person. And I didn't want to live that life all throughout my life. And I heard that my grandmother was sick. So I went back home to see my grandmother. She was lying in the bed, very ill. So when my mother left the room, I knew my grandmother was going to die. And I didn't want her to die with me telling her a lie. So I came out to my grandmother. I said, Grandma, I think I am like those men who like other men. I am gay. She's very religious, but she hugged me and said, I love you, my grandson. I think that she's already fading away, so she didn't really understood what I was saying, but she accepted me. And that was the moment I said to myself, like, if the person I love the most can accept me, there is no other person I would seek approval from. That is how I came out to live my life as a gay person.
And then after that really incredible, powerful, defining moment, you end up becoming an activist. You work for a human rights organization. You start, you get really involved in advocacy, and it's interesting because I know in the memoir, I think you say a few times that you never planned on being an activist, and yet you're doing all this amazing work. One of the things that I would love to hear more about is the time that the local law enforcement, the police, seek to raid your office. So you're doing this human rights work, you're doing this HIV advocacy work, and your office gets raided by the police. And you seem to have this epiphany where you have this idea to start training law enforcement, to train the police on the work that you're doing, essentially, and the needs and vulnerabilities of gay men. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, so when I left my hometown and moved to Abuja, it was kind of safe to be a gay person in Abuja at the beginning because there was no law that was persecuting gay people. So it was like kiss and don't tell, kind of like underground lifestyle. But after the government of Nigeria passed the Same-Sex Marriage Prohibition Act, it became difficult for gay people to exist. I was working for a human rights clinic that was providing access to treatment for HIV positive minorities, sexual minorities, that is gay men, injection drug users, and sex workers. And the place where we were providing these services is not openly displaying anything that has to do with gay people, but they're like condoms, dildos, they're like things that are used for sexual health education. So when the police came into the office to raid the office, they were like, you guys are gays, and that was what they were coming to raid us about. But they were surprised when they came in. It was condoms, lubricant, stuff that promotes safer sex. So we discovered that most of the law enforcement are unaware of the challenges that gay people face. They think about us as corrupting the society, not knowing that what we are trying to do is to prevent transmission of HIV, basically. So we got funding from National Endowment for Democracy, NED, from Washington, D.C., USA, to provide law enforcement training on how to address sexual minorities, which is sex workers, injection drug users, and gay men. And these help reduce the stigma that we face as a community. Because before that, a police person can just stop an effeminate gay person walking on the street and they'll be like, give me your phone. They are looking through, do you have a gay dating app? Do you have any nude photo? Anything just to show that you're a gay person, and they will arrest you. And we're trying to make them aware that those form of discrimination further increases the stigma that prevent people from coming to seek treatment, that is increasing the prevalence and incident rate of HIV among gay men. So that was the work I focus on. It's like destigmatizing police and law enforcement harassment of effeminate LGBTQI people who fall prey to the law in Nigeria.
Who was Bobby?
Huh?
Who was Bobby in the memoir? Who was Bobby?
So, I feel like Bobby was my first love in totality. So when I came to Abuja, I didn't know anybody. It's like moving from Atlanta to New York City. And Bobby had a 2-bedroom apartment. He stays in one of the bedroom, and all the other gay guys stay in another bedroom. And Bobby is like a mother, a father, a friend to everybody. So when you come to Abuja, you are the newest catch, and you get to sleep in Bobby's bedroom. So I didn't know that. I've suffered a lot of discrimination. Bobby showed me love, like gave me access to his apartment, the kitchen, and everything. So I felt like Bobby loved me. I didn't know that I was just new in Abuja and Bobby was going to do away with me when another new person comes into Abuja. So he has a hairdressing salon. Many people that come there, they work as apprentice in Bobby's hair salon, and they use that as a way of like getting employment. So when I came, Bobby wanted me to learn how to make hair for women, but I told him that I have a degree, so I would look for a job. So Bobby gave me a space to live and an opportunity to find myself as a gay person because he was effeminate. He had dreadlocks. Sometimes he wear women clothes. He was out to his family, his sisters, his siblings. They all know that he's a gay person, which made me kind of come out of my shells. So when Bobby died, it kind of like shattered my life because this is the person I have fallen in love with. This is the person I admire. It's like when you say a mother of a house and like a bigger sibling. Bobby was that person to 50 of us. So people say that Bobby was poisoned, but we don't know if it was HIV or whatsoever led to Bobby's death. One day he was in the salon and he was just vomiting like stuff from his mouth. They rushed him to the clinic. They discovered Bobby was dead. I was doing my master's in a different city. I ran back to Abuja for Bobby's funeral. And, you know, I feel like I took some of those qualities from Bobby. Like when I came to New York City and opened a shelter, I was living like the way Bobby was, like opening my doors to people. And I think there's so many gay people that through Bobby's generation, they're like 50, 55 now, or 45 years old. They see younger people as like their younger brothers that they want to take care of. And it's that love and affection that made Bobby had a larger imprint in my life and the memoir in general.
In 2016, you were awakened on your birthday by voices chanting your name, and they demanded that you open the door. and they were saying that they know you're gay and they wanted you to come out. Essentially, it was a mob that was formed around where you were living. Would you mind sharing with us that story and that experience of what happened?
Yeah. So I didn't realize that a lot of people have had a high on me. Because I am educated, I felt like I know the law, that nobody will be able to persecute me. So if a gay person is arrested or a gay person is being mobbed, I am the person that goes to the police and bail them out of the police station. I'm the one that go into the community and say, stop this. So people are like, what kind of courage do you have? Are you one of them and stuff like that? People have asked me, why do you carry a unisex bag? Why do you walk like a woman? Just like, why don't you have a girlfriend? In the community, people have questioned me like that. But I always felt like nothing bad will happen to me. I know myself. I will be able to go through this and stuff like that. So the night of my birthday, I went out with a group of friends. We had a good time. We drank. So when I came back home, my friend gave me a kiss on my cheek, and it was just like fun night, guys were laughing. Then I went to the bed to sleep. When I woke up in the morning, it was bang on my door. I was startled awake. I was lying on the floor, naked, with just like a brief on me. I ran to the window to see if I could run through the window. People were in my window screaming, "You're gay. We found out and we're going to kill you." I was just like frozen. I didn't know what to do. They broke into my apartment. They dragged me into the streets with sticks and woods and anything they could find. They were beating me up and I blacked out. You know, that was all I remembered. The next thing I realized is I was in an hospital trying to flee away from Nigeria.
And you escape, and you end up uh, getting on an airplane and on your way to New York to come to the United States. And I know one of the things in the memoir you reference these movies like Coming to America, so you have somewhat of an idea of America from perhaps pop culture and social media. But then you arrive at JFK Airport thinking that you would start your life here, but as you try to get through the airport, you're stopped. You're stopped, and you're taken aside by I think it's like the security. Could you tell us what happened after that? After you were detained at the airport?
You know, Atlanta looms large in my childhood.
Okay.
US 96 Olympics was hosted in Atlanta. I was 6 years old. My father would turn on his television, black and white television, connect it to the ignition of his Toyota car, the battery, turn on his ignition. That's how we watched the soccer games. And Nigeria, we beat Brazil in the semi-final, Argentina in the final, and we won the soccer game in the US. When they came back home, there were US flag on the Jay-Z. We had US flag in our living room, and like Atlanta looms big in my country, and like rap music, movies, and stuff like that. I wanted to come to America. I wanted to be gay, live my life, and be queer and stuff like that. I didn't know anything about the US immigration laws. It seems naive, but many people like myself do not know anything about criminal justice, mass incarceration, anything about America except like movies, pop culture, and stuff like that. So at the airport, they stamped my visa. I came with a 2 years visitor's visa. They're like, "Welcome to America. You could go in and stay." But I didn't have any friends or family in this country. So I went to the border patrol agent and asked for asylum. When I asked for asylum, they were questioning me. They put me in a room. That was the first time I saw Trump. It was on TV. It was campaigning to be president. It was like, we'll lock the immigrants, we'll build a wall. I haven't known who Trump was before that moment. But the next thing I saw, handcuffs in my hands, shackles on my waist and feet. I'm like, I didn't commit a crime. I came here and asked for asylum. Why are you guys treating me like this? They're like, every arriving alien that arrives in the border must be taken to a detention center. So they drove me to a jail in Elizabeth, New Jersey. When I got there, I got to discover that life was not what I thought it would be in America. At the detention center, I didn't come with money, so I had to work. You know, they pay me $1 a day for my labor. When my dorm was the cleanest dorm, they gave us slice of pizza each, everybody. You know, we're celebrating. When I came to New York to buy a pizza, it was $1. So something that cost $1, pizza was so important to everybody to show you the quality of the food we were eating at the detention center. I would say that that was the most difficult time of my life in America because I was contemplating going back to my country and even face persecution for being gay than stay in America because I didn't know what to do. I didn't have lawyers, didn't have money. My family didn't know where I was. I was like, it was so difficult for me. Worst of it all, I'm an openly gay person, kept in a room with other people who come from countries where they still persecute gay people. You know, like the Latinos, they call me maricon. And some people in the shower, they're like, we don't want to have sex with you. I'm like, you know, people don't know who gay people are, and everybody just have a judgment of like who we are. It was like a very difficult moment in my life. That was like, welcome to America. This is how we treat people who are coming here to seek protection from persecution.
You know, one of the things that was really profound in your memoirs, how you talked about, so after you left, after you were granted asylum, and actually that might, I think our audience would probably want to hear about that. So could you talk to us about, so when you go up before the judge and, you know, and you have to essentially tell your story, and you are still like being out publicly still very new to you, and you're having to tell this judge all the trauma that you went through, but everything is high stakes because the judge has the power to send you back to Nigeria or allow you to remain in the US. Could you talk about the hearing and how you had to like present your case before the judge?
Luckily, I had a lesbian lawyer. So she she was very uh, heartwarming. So she made me comfortable. So for you to be granted asylum, you have to prove that there's a chance you will be persecuted if you return to your home country, or you have suffered a past persecution that threatens your life. And there are different categories for getting asylum. But one of the most difficult category to get asylum is membership of a particular social group, which is like LGBTQ people. Luckily, there's a law in my country that says I could be imprisoned for being a gay person. But what the judge is trying to prove is not the law in my country. Is if I am a member of that particular social group. So I have to prove that I am a gay person. So it was very difficult to prove that. But there's like a big document that my lawyer compiled. Friends of mine from Nigeria, they wrote letters confirming who I was, what I do for a living, my family, doctor's reports, and I had to give testimony to prove that I am this person, that all this information are true. And after cross-examination, the judge finally agrees that I have evidence to be granted asylum. So I was granted asylum.
So in a way, you had to go from hiding being gay to having to prove that you were gay.
Yeah, I think that the most difficult parts of proving that you are gay is like not for me. It was very easy to prove I am gay. I won an award from AVAC that shows my profile. My lawyer screenshot my grinder profile. My
Wait,
face
so
was on my grinder.
your lawyer introduces evidence your grinder profile?
Yeah. She asked for my login to all my dating profile. Grinder, Manjam. So pictures of me and my fiance, my boyfriend in America, pictures of me in Nigeria, pictures of me in underground ballroom, wearing makeups and stuff like that. Just documentation to prove that I am a gay person because I was very open about my sexual orientation. It wasn't so difficult to prove I was a gay person. I think I lasted less than 15 minutes in the courts for a hearing that usually takes 4 hours. And the judge said, I believe you and I will grant you asylum.
So you're granted asylum. You're able to leave the detention center where you're being held, and you're able to step out into New York and begin your life in New York City, this new life. And I get the sense that you perhaps had, and I imagine, well, perhaps you had come here with the sort of romanticized notion of the United States, and then as you were held in detention, that began to certainly that dream had began to be somewhat you know, you start to get a more a realistic sense of what life was like here, essentially. But it didn't stop there, because then you started having to navigate being a Black gay man in the LGBTQ community. Could you just talk a bit about just some of, particularly your experience with racism, how you're starting to sort of understand your racial identity here in the United States in this context, and just some of those experiences?
It's dissociating to realize that you come from a country where you're 100% Black. The only white people you have seen are tourists. You know, in my memoir, I spoke about in my community when somebody got married to a white lady, how we were sharing the guy, like, hey, you have like won the lottery or stuff like that. So I didn't know that in reverse, Black people are not celebrated in white dominated countries. The first time I ever experienced racism was like a few days after I got out of the detention center. I was staying at the YMCA in Newark, and I it was raining close to Penn Station in Newark Penn Station. And you know, I went into the shade like to take a shade, and a guy was like smoking blunt there and was like, go back to Asia, go back to Haiti. I was like, no, I'm not from Haiti. It was like, I don't care. Just go back to where you are. And this person is even a Black person. Like, surprisingly, it was like, go back to where you came from. So there's discrimination, and there is other form of like xenophobia that I suffer, that made me realize that America is like the marginalized pitting against the marginalized. In the gay community, it's very difficult to exist as a Black gay person. As an African, it was way worse. You know, one of the first places you go to is like Grinder to go and look for somebody. And everybody there are like, you know, oh, you're African, wow. It's like they sexualize who you are and don't recognize your humanity. I went to a gay bar, Monster. It was difficult for me to even understand what was happening there because it's all white. Like, I don't have anything against white people, but it was so difficult for me to find a community where I could exist. And I think that that is the struggle that many immigrants face who come from Africa. Because if I was a Jewish immigrant, the Jewish community will like integrate me. If I'm a Muslim immigrant, the Muslim community will like integrate me. But because I am Black, African and gay. When I came, the gay community said, "Oh, you're a refugee." The refugee community said, "Oh, you're African." The African community said, "Oh, you're gay." So in every community I found myself in, I was like the order. So that was like a, a personality or identity disorder that I couldn't really fit into a community yet.
Folks in the audience, I imagine that you may start having questions or wanting to react. So I'm gonna pose one more question before we open it up for other questions. So definitely feel free to weigh in and to share your thoughts. But I did want to ask you about Nicholas. And one of the things I appreciated about your memoir is that though there's certainly a lot of violence and a lot of trauma, and it was just really, really beautifully written, but also just very painful to sort of bear witness to so much of the struggle that you went through. But there's also a love story. There's also a love story in your memoir, and you talk about how you met Nicholas. Could you share how y'all met and just like what it meant for you, sort of falling in love?
Yeah, you know, I didn't realize I was in love until I was knee deep into it. So, you know, I wasn't ready to have a relationship when I met Nicholas. I was in between jobs. I was moving from New Jersey to New York. I was just starting the shelter. Life was really difficult for me at that moment. And I just wanted to focus on like getting things done. And one day I went on Grinder, surprisingly enough. And I was chatting, and this person wrote me a message. I think Nicholas wrote me first. And I was like, "Hey, how are you?" He sent me a picture. It was like in a store shopping, and there's like the Easter bunny. And I'm like, "Oh, this is cute, but like, get away from here." But it wrote me again, and I was like, a picture with like a cigar in his mouth. Like, I was like, okay, this guy is trying to be funny. So I sent him a picture. He was like, "Oh, I w- um, what's your name?" I told him my name, and he was like, "Oh, it's Nick." I was like Nicki Minaj. No, no. I was like, "Give me." He said, "I said, give me your phone number." So I called him. I was like, "Hello, Nicki Minaj. How are you?" He was like, "Oh, you calling Nicki Minaj?" I was like, "You." And we spent only like 3 chats on Grinder, and it was on the phone. We went out. We wanted to go and have a drink. We got to the place where we're supposed to drink. The pool table was filled. So I and Nicholas started shouting, and I told him that, "Hey, I came here as a refugee, and this is my story." And we just spoke till like late in the night. And it was listening to me, it was kind, it was caring. Surprisingly, that night has turned into a long relationship together. And in the memoir, I wrote a lot about how me and Nicholas have learned a lot from each other and supported each other. But a lot of people do not know how much he has supported me to be a better person in so many things I do. Because sometimes you need somebody that is very close to you to tell you that you are what you're doing. And even though you hear it a lot from the outside, like coming in from the inside means a lot more. And when I was younger, I never thought I would be able to have a relationship, like get married to another person, because being gay, the only prospect we have was either being killed by HIV or being imprisoned by 14 years imprisonment. So one thing I try to live up to sometimes is that there's so many people that look up to me in the Nigerian gay community and beyond, and they're like, if Edafe can do it, I think I can do it also. And they get to see a possibility that outside those two options, there's another option. And one day, maybe they too can be able to find somebody they love and live a life that is full. So we talk about our pain all the time. And I wanted to show people that although I had persecution I went through, there's still joy in my life. And Nicholas is like a part of that joy.
That's excellent. That's excellent. Yeah, it was interesting just looking at your journey and how even through all the stuff you went through, you were still able to find a place for joy. I thought that was really inspiring.
You know, our ancestors went through a lot for us to be able to have this joy. Imagine my father grew up in a Nigeria whereby we were under the British rule. My father lost all 8 of his siblings to hunger and famine because they were fighting a civil war in Nigeria. I lost some family members to hunger and famine. I lost a lot of friends to HIV. I lost a lot of close connection because they couldn't survive it. If I made it, it is up to me to make sure that their lives are remembered and their memories will live on. And what would I repay them? By being angry, by being so I try to show that people sacrifice for me to be here, and that is the joy I try to spread in the world.
What's been some of the reactions to your memoir since it's been published? What are some of the how could you just talk about that?
You know, the reviews are good, but the New York Times review, I'm not going to talk negative about the New York Times, but I think they're trying to maintain journalistic ethics. So they gave a Nigerian to review the book. But the lady that reviewed the book, she clearly had bias against gay and the religion, like talking about Jesus Christ in a New York Times book review is to show you the contrast. But she said the book is good. So I loved it. A lot of people have reacted very positively to the book. The most important thing for me so far is to see people who know me still get surprised by reading the memoir. They're like, I didn't know that you went through this much. I thought I knew you. You know, when people see me, because I'm very outspoken, I speak a lot, people think that, oh, they would know everything I've written in a book. But many people that have read the book are surprised that a lot of things I wrote in the book, I have never spoken about them before. So that is something I felt is like, it's still very eye-opening for people who know a lot about being gay and being a refugee.
Yeah, I know we talked before we got on, but you one of the stories in the book that you told was about someone asked you about BBC, and you thought they were asking you about the television network. And could you share that story with us? But in the PG-13 sort of way, I guess.
Yeah, I was on a gay dating app, and someone said BBC ? And I was like, British Broadcasting Network, like BBC. I listened to BBC radio growing up, and I watched BBC television, and I didn't know it means something else in the gay community, and that was like very surprising for me. And I think it shows a contrast with where I grew up in and how gay culture is in America. It's very um, they fetishize black gay men. Africans is like double trauma. It's like, oh, you're African, that means it's this and that. And it's difficult to find people that will see you for who you are. And that was one thing I really love about Nicholas is that when we started chatting and everything, there's some, you know, there's some knowledge that he doesn't have about my experience. I didn't pretend like he had those information. It was like, I don't know much about this. Can you tell me more about this? Can you tell me more about that? I can't really change the gay culture because I feel like it's like a culture that arose from persecution. But I feel like as we begin to become more open in society, we should start looking at how are we trying to stigmatize or discriminate against people in the community, and how do we create a safer space for people to be themselves.
I mean, one of the things that I took from your memoir was just so many of the things that you shared are things that I also went through. So I wasn't expecting that. So I thought, wow, this is really something else. Just the ability for your words and your story to sort of and just some of the parallels of just growing up in the United States South here, like, and just, you know, also experiencing like violence and just so many, and the stigma and the discrimination. So I also appreciated those parts too, that I think there's maybe some critical dialogue that can even happen, you know, with Black gay men and just, you know, collectively. And I hope that that happens too through your book.
Yeah, I can resonate with that, because I feel like most of my experiences might be the same experiences of Black gay men in the South, because South of the United States have values that are geared towards conservative Nigeria.
Yeah, my dad was a preacher too, and and the church stuff definitely resonated. Yeah, just so many of the stories, and I just really appreciated that. Were there any while you were writing your memoir, were there any times where you thought maybe I shouldn't share this, maybe this is too personal, maybe this is just too traumatic? Were there things that you wanted to withhold or that you struggled with putting out for the public to consume?
I withheld a lot of information. One of the information I withheld that I wish I told was this. And this is the first time I'm ever sharing it in public, and it's going to be archived. I'm even shy to say it. There was a lot of things I withheld, because I wanted to pay homage to the people who were part of this struggle. You see, I told a lot of people's story. You know, when I got out of the detention center, I was homeless. I was staying at the YMCA. Before I stayed at the YMCA, I would have slept in like train station. So one evening, I was on Grinder, and I was chatting, and an older white guy messaged me and was like, "Hey, what's up?" I was like, "I don't have a place to stay. Can I stay in your couch?" And I was like, "Yes, if you have sex with me." You know, I did it. I just came out of the detention center. I would have slept in the train station that night. But you know what? These are the experience many people like myself go through that we cannot speak about in public. I cannot put it in the book because I felt like I don't want to put that in the book. There's so many experiences I have had that I couldn't share in the book. I don't know. It's just so like shocking. You know, when I came to America, someone told me, "Are you HIV positive?" I said no, and I was like, "Sorry, you're going to work very hard, because there's housing for people living with HIV and AIDS in New York, but there's no housing for HIV negative people. So I wish you well in your struggle." People say things like that. It's just there are some things that I feel like is secretive to the community that I don't want to put out there or share.
Yeah, I remember one of the parts in your memoir, I think you talk about how someone wanted to have coffee with you, or they were going to, I think, help you professionally, and they invite you to their office. And you didn't name the person's name, but yeah, there was
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. I, 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 I came here, I was very young. I was running a nonprofit. I had to raise almost $1 million for the nonprofit. Many older white guys would invite me to their office to talk about my organization. I run around and talk about my organization. So this person invited me to his office, and I said, "Hey, I have a relationship. I have a partner. You don't even respect everything I am bringing in front of you right now. All you think about is if I have sex with you, you give to my nonprofit." I wouldn't do that. One thing I did that I really loved is that I maintained my integrity as a gay person. You know, I didn't have sex with people to raise money for my organization. I told you before the conversation, most gay Nigerians, when they come to America, they do the circles, whereby for you to have a place to stay, a gay Nigerian will sleep with you and you sleep with his cash and they'll throw you to another gay Nigerian like that. I didn't do that. And many people despised me because they felt like I was too stubborn. I felt like, apart from integrity, there are some people who do not have an education like I do or do not have opportunities. They will resort to doing that because they don't have any other option.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. And that's, you know, something that that I think a lot of people don't know about. Just the I don't even know what to call it, but you're here trying to raise money for your nonprofit organization, and people are basically expecting you to sleep with them to donate to your organization, and that's just, and it's, you know, it's, there's just so much that happens that's not really talked about.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you sharing that.
You know, I was like, I prefer to have an organization that have less than $1 million than to have a big organization that I would, you know, it's what they call the talk of the town. That you can't show your face because everybody will be like, oh, I've slept with him, oh, I've slept, like people talk like that. So that's one thing that I'm grateful that even though things were hard for me, I didn't give people the option to take advantage of me.
I see there's some comments in the chat that I just wanted to hold up. Excited to be here. Great to hear you share more about your memoir. Excited to be here to celebrate Asylum with you. I'm glad the New York Times reviewer understood the quality and import of your book. Love the story. One more note about that New York Times review was I didn't understand why the reviewer started with the Jussie Smollett stuff. I just didn't understand that. That was just really bizarre to me.
Me too. I was surprised. When I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, why? But you know, something too is that I think in overall, it shows the premise of the argument of the book, that it will challenge people's belief and stereotype about gay people. And that is a win for the community I represent, is that I am the first Nigerian to be published by a big publisher that use an I statement and come out as a gay person, to be reviewed by the New York Times, good or bad. She didn't criticize the book, the writing. She criticized what she believed should have been said, like credibility of like immigration claim. Okay, fine. It's a memoir. I'm not a journalist. I'm not telling a story of people claiming asylum. I feel is a win for my community in general. It's opening the doors for other people to come after me to say that I would share my story. I would share my experience because Edafe has given me an insight into what it means to challenge the stereotype. And I feel so also too that many people would write a book that wouldn't be reviewed by the New York Times. It's also a win. You understand? We have to be able to tell our story in blogs, in Instagram, in TikTok, wherever we are, wherever we can be able to share our experiences. We have to, because the more we are able to humanize our struggle, the less it is for younger generation to feel those struggle, because the ladder my parents climb, I don't have to climb it. And the ones I have climbed, the people after me wouldn't have to climb it. I don't know if you saw this question. Somebody asked a question. I think it was geared towards me. It said, can you speak about your literary influences? Are there books that help you shape this book? So this is something, I think the person asked me a private question. I don't know if you saw that question, Chas.
Oh, I see it now. Thanks for flagging it.
So, you know, when I was writing my memoir, my agent warned me, do not read any nonfiction or memoir because it might influence how you are writing your book right now. But before I started writing my memoir, I have read a lot of nonfiction books that have influenced me a lot. One of them is Notes of a Native Son. I feel like I'm like James Baldwin of my time. That is like a long shot. But he left America and went to France, and he was valued as a writer there. I left Nigeria and came to America, and I was valued as a writer here. The value I wouldn't get in my country. Also, Punch Me Up to the Gods is a book that I think is one of the best written memoir ever. I love that book. But I read a lot of books that are not memoirs that have really shaped who I am as a person. There's a book called There Was a Country. It's written by a Nigerian author about the Biafran War. And it gives an insight into a narrative that is not popular. Because if you hear about the Biafra War, it's mostly written by the people who won the war. Rarely do you see a perspective by an Igbo person that portrays a perspective about the suffering that people went through on the other side of the war. And I think that that was something I try to do in my memoir, is that people think about refugees when they have won their refugee status, like they have won the war. But I'm just trying to make it clear that we're still fighting a war every single day.
Final question that I wanted to ask you is, I feel like your memoir is in part just a really beautifully written story and just provides all this amazing insight. But I also feel like it's a call to action in a sense. I feel like it's asking us to do more, to do something, to respond to these injustices, especially from what you were sharing. And so I guess what I would like to know and what I would want you to share with the audience is, what can people do to help, to help, to be more involved, to be more present, particularly for asylum seekers that come here escaping persecution such as yourself?
Thank you very much. I think that when we get to hear stories about asylum seekers, it's the first step towards understanding and having empathy for the struggle we go through. That is a good first step. But there's so many organizations that are grassroots that are helping asylum seekers. I think that they are the best route towards helping an asylum seeker, because there's so many gay people that come here from different countries that have never been to a gay bar. When I went to Monster the first time, if someone who is an American, who is black, who is gay, walked with me to Monster, I would have felt comfortable. I think that that is like the first step, is that we don't consider refugees that come here as part of the LGBTQ community. I would love to see the Black community in America, the Black gay community, be more intersectional in welcoming Black gay people that come into America. That would be a very big step. But you have to support local grassroots organizations that are providing food, clothing, shelter for LGBTQ displaced people. That is the work I have been doing my entire life since I came to the US. From founding a shelter to finding Refuge America, is always trying to find ways in the grassroots level to be able to support LGBTQ displaced people.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing this story. Next up, we'll have ER. We'll share with us about how to buy the book and just what we need to know to support your work.
Yeah, so thank you both so much. This is a beautiful conversation. Thank you both for your activism. I did put links to both of your organizations in the chat. So if folks want to send funding your way, that is always appreciated. Please fund this important work. And the way you can support Charis tonight is by buying Asylum from Charis. And you just click this teal button at the bottom center of the screen. It's one click. It takes you right to the book. And it really does help us when you buy event books directly from us. I know many folks pre-ordered the book, which is always great too. And we will send out bookmarks, which have just come along with it. So thank you all for being with us tonight. Thank you for watching wherever you're watching from. I'll be adding this to our YouTube channel as well. So if you know folks who wanted to be here tonight but couldn't for any reason, just know they can check it out for free on our YouTube channel within 24 hours. And our whole back catalog of events is there since the beginning of the pandemic. June month is Pride Month, so we have a ton of wonderful events coming up at Charis virtually. So we hope you will join us for all of those. You can check those out at charisbooksandmore.com. Get the full slate of events. So thank you tonight to the Counter Narrative Project, to Atlanta Pride, and of course to Edafe and Charles. We're so grateful to both of you for being here.
Thank you very much.